star, and everybody's in showbiz. It doesn't matter who you are. And those who are successful, be always on your guard. Success walks hand in hand with failure along Hollywood Boulevard.
Leader to lead us into the glorious future or return us back to the glorious days of America. How does one apply the particular science of the KINversation or the understanding that the KINversation brings to them on a day-to-day basis? What's the practical application for the common person?
We always, that's the question. That is the question. That's what led us to the KINversation. In other words, we're in a distressful situation locally. Me, 31 Trinity. I'm in distress. So I come together with Jakada to find out why. What's the cause? Our investigation together as the brother in that distress. We both realized that there's a commonality here. You know what I mean? We're in distress. There's a birth certificate, social security number, and binding contracting. So we understand that we're in a similar situation. In opening our mind together, we saw that there was a commonality, although you're in Westfield, I'm here, so that opens the mind, so we're open, we're in distress. And then we saw a commonality of the contracts of confinement or binding that we tried to cleverly alleviate, together. And that's all we've been doing, really, is that, individually trying to do.
So what would be the practical application for the common person who's not jaykin?
I was getting to that.
Okay.
A long-winded answers for I remember the question. So that's what we were saying, that in that investigation is that we tried to answer it in a specific way with the document answering that I'm not that. I'm not that. Although our parents did give us that at birth, for the good of all, for the greater good, we're actually not that. You know what I mean? That's an assumed identity. So we weren't that. We knew that. So how could we be a distress in that identity? So that's what our investigation is always about. As you, who knows better than you, that's what we do. So in finding the source of that fictional appearance, we understand that it was voluntary. So putting all these things together in the common view of it, then we said, okay, then we would address each one. How can we try to think our way out of the distress? But what we found in the interim, in doing this over and over again, was that it was always a voluntary action that put us into the distress. You have to volunteer. You have to invite the vampire in. You have to this is voluntary, for value. Okay? So it was the documents were actually a symbol of what we were thinking in our own mind, that this is valuable. This is valuable. My appearance alone is valuable. So what happens to the appearance was a vulnerability that we volunteered for. And symbolically in law, that's what we do all the time, as we know. So after we know that, what do we do in our everyday existence? It's like the grandfather and Little Big Man. Am I still here? Yes, grandfather. I was afraid of that. So what do we do? So what we do, you and I do, in an answer to this, would be to symbolically change those contracts, change that communication. So in other words, you're the author of them, you're the maker of them, so you would change them. You would say, no, there's a universality here, that if we localize a problem, it will be localized all over the place. It's like the ideal of the republic. If you weaken one position of vulnerability, I volunteer to be vulnerable, I'm volunteering to make you, in my eyes, vulnerable also. I see you as vulnerable because I'm accepting vulnerability as value. So we have to change our mind. That's not valuable. That couldn't be valuable. How could it be valuable? So every day, yeah, we're dealing with the same problem. Your question, Jakada, is what do we do every day? And we're working on it. We're working on it. We're doing this. We're talking. Communication is life. And until I reveal to you what I found, there is no life. In other words, if we're both localized, both in distress for the same reason, and we're not talking about it, then we're going to hold the localization as valuable. So this is a holding in the mind, like you said. We're holding something valuable that's not, and so it's a mistake. It's a mistake. So a mistake calls for correction only. So what we do all day, what I practice all day, and I'm not trying to speak for you, I'm saying that what I do all day is I correct that mistake. I don't take it personally. I don't take the localization personally. I know that the distress we're in is a universal distress, and this is the universal answer. So, of course, forgiveness of every position, every localization, is the way home. So, in other words, we let go of those confining localizations and saying that appearance isn't value in and of itself, but the universality remedy is beneficial and universally beneficial to all. So I hope that
So if you had to sum up, and let's say, point one, point two, point three, how would someone coming in to hear the conversation, what would they initially take out of the conversation, or the conversation, after hearing, about their mistake? Because this is what we're talking about. We're talking about there have been a tremendous amount of mistakes made, and we're trying to correct the mistake. Is that really the genesis of the conversation? Looking at the mistake and then figuring out a way to correct the mistake?
Well, in acceptance of the remedy, the mistake never was. In a sense, and in a very real sense, we're dreaming our distress. It's a dream. This is a dream. I don't use it as allegory. We're dreaming. The child of God, the child of source, the child of cause is an effect of that cause. So the kin, instead of using, instead of using he or she, kin, we use kin. So the kin of God, the kin of cause, the kin of source would, the remedy is right there. So if you're accepting a false identity for value in your mind and then projecting everything you see from that decision, once you change your mind, everything changes automatically. My brother is not my enemy. There is no enemy. So what, in a sense, do I need to do? If my job, my purpose here is forgiveness. Once I forgive, it's done. The dream's over. Yeah. So, I know it's difficult because we're localizing in an evolutionary way the thought of value in a localization. So there's an evolutionary process that you're thinking about right now. So what do I do? 63 years old. I'm in Montclair, New Jersey. Where is this position and the momentum that happens in time? Where is this going to take me? Where's the advantage? And my answer, quite frankly, is there is no advantage. There is no evolution. It's a dream. So we born ourselves into a dream. Now, we appear to come from the water and the womb of a virgin birth. You know what I mean? So again, we are the God-man. We are we are God's child. We are Source's child. We are Cause's child as an effect. And what we do is we try to maintain the innocence of this by projecting the guilt of what I've done, the mistake of what I've done to appear, not as myself. I project that mistake outward. So that's where the enemy is. The mean projects it on the tuin. So the tuin's more guilty, justified of attacking him, and so that's how I take what he has and have more. That's the achieving in the dream. So the dream has no achievement. It's a dream. Any achievement in the dream would be illusory. So that's what we don't understand. We think we're here to do some, to get bigger or to get stronger or to get the Oscar or to get the Super Bowl trophy, and it's all about winning. And that is our greatest failure, because basically what you're doing is making a hierarchy of illusion level confused in every level. So again, there's nothing going on here. There can't be an evolution of a mistake. The greater good of that mistake, the greater good. Why does it always make everything not so grand, not so great, not so good? This is the answer. This is why. It's a mistake. A mistake can't be done. Nothing can be done to a mistake. It calls for correction only. So Jesus, as the symbol of this forgiveness, resurrection, is saying that I forgive Judas. I forgive the Pharisees. I forgive the Romans. Forgive them all. They know not what they do. That's his resurrection. That's the resurrection of the God. That's the resurrection of the child of God. So the localization goes, and he's free. So what do I need to do? I just need to accept this. Accept it. See it. See it everywhere. I see you as my brother. I see you as healed. I accept healing for you, and you accept it for me. So what I give is what I have. That's the rising. That's the rising. And they spoke about it in Plato's time and in the Gnostics, was the death of the man, the resurrection of the God. So we placed ourselves on the cross. My appearance for value that has none, mistake. I placed myself on the cross. I placed the child of God, the child of cause, the child as an effect of that cause. I placed him on a cross to crucify him, to kill him, to change him into something else, an appearance that I'm satisfied with in a localization. And by the way, that is absolutely futile. I don't care if you're Alexander the Great, Khufu, or Obama. That is futile. And it always has been futile. So that mistake can't be made correct through an evolutionary process in the dream. That's really, the dream only wants to do one thing. It's continue. You know what I mean? It's a continuity of government. Continue. Survive. And really, survival of the fittest, it's really survivor of the survivor. So it just wants to continue. You know what I mean? So our purpose in reality is to, of course, see this as a mistake and quote-unquote end it. End what never began. It's a dream. It's a dream. So, this is heavy. You know what I mean? It's like, everything that we work for and everything we put together and raised up, the penis of Osiris to the Washington Monument, we've raised it for naught, for nothing. For a Tower of Babel. In other words, we're not communicating. We're communicating from a false localization to dominate our brother. So basically what we're trying to do, all we ever made that wasn't like God making, in other words, universality of love and an extension of that love eternally, has been hell. You know what I mean? So, you can put a face on of it, Putin or Obama or Alexander the Great, but in each aspect of that attempt, there would be people that say, well, this is hell on earth. This is hell. And then the rising up, the king in his golden, bower, he would be saying, no, it's not so bad. You know what I mean? But that assumption of power and value is really a self-deception of the appearance. It's a willingness to self-deceive. So what do we do every day? We're working on it. You know what I mean? That's why we're here. That's why the KINversation is. We're working on it. What do we do now? And it's a good question. So I would ask you the same question. What do we do now? As a master of contracting, what would you do now with this information? So it's always you tell me, I tell you, and it's an exchange of communication.
Well, that was pretty that was pretty simple. I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really a reflection. You know, just saying this. You know, let's do some self-reflection. Let's do some reflection to make sure that what we perceive is real and correcting the issues that we claim we are having. So let's see what's real. Let's examine it. Let's talk about it. Let's share different opinions and thoughts. And somewhere along the line, that will take us to where we need to go.
Well, in a sense, it's like we always talk about that seeking. If we seek the truth, we will have it. It's like may the heavens fall. I want the truth. I don't. You know what I mean? I don't want fiction. I don't want quasi nature of anything. I want the truth. Oh, the truth can't be known. That's crazy. You know what I mean? The presumption is that the truth can't be known, and that is, there's no absolute truth. Is the presumption's mantra. There's no absolute. We can't find truth. We just have to take what we can get through the building up of the penis of Osiris. That's patently false. That's crazy. And it's also crazy. That's an expression of my appearance as not myself for value. Okay?
So
I'm sorry.
So let's end this session and start another one by saying in this session that the truth can be known.
Absolutely.
Everybody's a dreamer, and everybody's a star, and everybody's in showbiz. It doesn't matter who you are. And those who are successful, be always on your guard. Success walks hand in hand with failure along Hollywood Boulevard.